Well, when you thought that injuries couldn't get any worse in the NRL this season, they absolutely did this round. So there's plenty to talk about. It got a lot worse for the New South Wales State of Origin side. They've got some concerns there, but hell of a good round. Some great games, and in all fairness, the best game is probably the last game of the round. Lots to talk about, so we may as well get into it. Dolphins versus Sea Eagles, the first game on Thursday night. Dolphins winning that one 30-24. Dolphins I had to win at 1-12. Sea Eagles had the better start to the game easily. They scored the first try through Tommy Talau, and they scored two more after Ewan Aitken's try to lead 16-4. So Sea Eagles leading at 30 minutes. But the Dolphins came storming back. They scored 3 tries in 6 minutes to lead 20-16 at halftime. Dangerous. One try being an impressive solo effort to Trey Fuller, who struggled a little bit in the wet a week or two ago under the, just with ball handling, but showing that he's definitely good enough to be in an NRL starting side. His chip and chase kick was absolute class. The Sea Eagles started the second half as they did the first, scoring the first try in the 50th minute through Turbo, who ended up going off with a hamstring injury after that. A little after that, and he won't be back till round 18. New South Wales injury number 1. It was a very close and even second half contest, but the Dolphins made the most of their opportunities, and they won another close one, so 2 close ones in a row. Seagulls weren't able to sustain the rapid start that they had. I mean, the way they were playing, they were looking unstoppable. The Dolphins were able to cement themselves in the top 4 with this win, and they're tracking pretty well with even considering some of the injuries they have with Tabuai Fido due back this week, I believe. First game on Friday night, so second game of the round was the Panthers versus Bulldogs. Panthers winning 16-10. I had Panthers 13 plus there. Nathan Cleary was back after a precautionary week off after his hamstring injury. Isaac Tungo was out, of course, suspended, and Alamoti came in for him. Connor Tracy came in late for the Bulldogs, stayed in at fullback. So Blake Tafe was out. Sam Hughes and Josh Curran did a swap just before kickoff, and Jacob Preston was back from his broken jaw. Panthers dominated the first half, Cleary looking really good. He offered up 2 forced dropouts and a try-saving tackle. But, as you should know by now, he wasn't able to finish the half. He played almost the full half, but anyway, tweaking his hamstring injury, and he won't be back until round 19. So what is that? We're round 17. It's about 8 games. The halftime, and he is basically his Origin. He missed the complete series. Halftime score was 12-0. The Panthers weren't the same team without Cleary or a halfback, really. In the second half, they only scored 2 penalty kicks through Edwards. These were the only 2 scoring plays. Bulldogs managed to get back into the game with a try to Matt Burton in the 69th minute, but Panthers' defence was just too good. Jacob Carraz scored a consolation try at the end there to make the score 16-10. Bulldogs winning the second half by all accounts. Yeo and Luke Garner were the Panthers leaders in the forward pack. They dominated the game, really. In terms of the Panthers outside, they were pretty outside backs. They were pretty key. They ran a total of 626 metres and 23 tackle busts from 64 runs, so pretty impressive effort there. Good defensive effort from the Bulldogs, of course. They were within reach of on the scoreboard, really, but just found it too hard to score. Of course, they scored at the end to make the score slightly more respectable, but Panthers were a little bit rudderless without Cleary, but of course, Bulldogs only keeping the Panthers to 2 penalty goals in the second half. The other Friday night game, Eels versus Broncos, but home game for the Eels there. Score was 14-30 to the Broncos in a pretty wet game. I had Broncos there 13 plus, so that makes sense. Very wet conditions. Eels had some early dominance, and they only managed to take away 2 points through a penalty. After nearly scoring a try in the corner. Anyway, the Broncos end up leading at halftime, but 2 tries were from intercepts. So, the Eels right in the game. It's just Broncos can be so dangerous. And another good try to Dean Mariner from 40 metres out. He ended up with 2 tries in the half, one being one of the intercepts. Eels scored 1 first half try through young kid Blaze Talangi, bouncing back from an early error in the game. He is definitely a kid with promise. Our halftime score was 8-18 to the Broncos, but Eels showing a bit of grit there, but it's just struggling to finish their attacking efforts. Broncos, they can score from anywhere. Eels scored an early try in the second half through Dylan Brown, who managed a one-on-one strip on Dean Mariner as he was trying to run it out from his own line off a kick return. And so that was pretty clever play there by Dylan Brown. And then, but that was the last score for the Eels in the game, as the weather just got worse. But Ezra Mam scored a clever solo try from a chip and chase, and Selwyn Cobo scored a really good try off a kick just before the ball reached the dead ball line. Both tries were impressive in those conditions. Certainly the Broncos playing well in those conditions. Broncos will be happy with their performance after the week before against the Roosters, getting pumped. And certainly playing this one without Adam Reynolds. The Eels still struggling. They want some consistency with their forward personnel. That's been changing a lot, and they'll look forward to Moses returning in, I don't know, next week or two. We'll see. And then of course Blaze Talangi is certainly their shining light. He'll play fullback. He should play fullback for the next few games while Clint Gutherson is out. Tigers versus Knights, first game on Saturday. Tigers losing 14-20, so the Knights won that one in Tamworth out in the country. I had Knights 1-12 for that one, so that was right. Stafford Toa, he returned for the Tigers and only lasting about 14 minutes. I think he re-aggravated his injury. Jaden Sullivan was in at halfback for suspended Aiden Caesar, and Coruscant was back. Isaiah Papali'i, it was his turn to go to lock. John Bateman going to the edge, so they swapped from the week before. And for the Knights, Dylan Lucas late changed to the starting edge, and Kai Pearce-Paul went to the bench. So that was a bit frustrating for a lot of fantasy teams. Isaiah Papali'i opened the scoring in the 16th minute after the Tigers opted to run on the last rather than kick, and an offload from Sullivan, taking the line on. 10 minutes later, Bradman Best made a good line break, and Jareem Buller tackled Dylan Lucas after the Bradman Best pass. Jareem Buller just held Dylan Lucas too long and went to the bin. The Knights scored pretty much straight after through an offload from David Armstrong to Glenn Marzio in the corner. Anari Tuala scored right in half-time for the Knights to lead 6-8, which would have been pretty devastating for the Tigers. They were right in the game. A try just before half-time certainly would have been part of the plan. Bradman Best went absolute beast mode in the second half, probably his best game almost ever. But yeah, he set it up scoring, and I think he set up a try to David Armstrong, and scored one himself. So Isaiah Papali'i scored in between those two tries to the Knights, and the score was 10-20 to the Knights with about 15 to go. Daniel Saifiti then hit Jake Simpkin high with 7 to go and was sin-binned. And that was sort of so it just made it a little bit more challenging there for the Knights. Tigers scored through Brent Naden with enough time to have another go, but the Knights managed to hang on, of course. So the Knights now 3 in a row, tracking pretty well. Maybe we jumped the gun there talking about the Tigers being a lot better. They certainly are better, but and started the season well, but still struggling to win. Then we had the Dragons versus Rabbitohs. Dragons winning that one 28-14. I had Dragons 13 plus. Another wet game. Just the weather's been crazy in Australia at the moment. It was certainly up that east coast. I don't know what the deal is. Certainly a lot more than what we've got back here in New Zealand. Moses Suli returns for the Dragons after his concussion. Jack de Belin started at lock, which we haven't seen for a little while. Certainly I don't think we've seen it this year. And Raymond Fatala-Marana went to the bench. That meant Eisenhuth went to the edge. who normally had been starting lock for the Dragons. Latrell Mitchell, of course, is the big news for the Bunnies, coming back from his suspension, but they did make a handful of other changes just before kickoff. Zach Lomax opened the scoring off a Ben Hunt kick. Zach Lomax obviously been playing pretty well. Latrell Mitchell responded in kind from a Cody Walker kick, and Jack Bird scores for the Dragons. Second try down the right edge there, so yeah, both tries were down the right edge for the Dragons. Rabbitohs were denied a try a few minutes before half time, but that was just before Zach Lomax managed to get into a position to kick a long range drop goal for and scored 2 points from that. Pretty impressive drop kick. Therefore, Dragons finishing the half in lead 12-6. Pretty close first half. Isaac Thompson scored in the corner. Great try right in the very corner. And I just remember thinking earlier in that game, I don't know if he's quite NRL standard, but certainly that try was. And that was after a Zach Lomax penalty. So Zach Lomax kicked a penalty. The score was 14-10. Jaden Sewer scores with 20 minutes to go, converted, and scores were at 20-10 to the Dragons. It was going to be a tough for Bunnies to sort of catch them from there. Another late try for the Dragons, managed to seal it. Jack DeBellin managed to get to the ball after it was bouncing around a little bit. Latrell Mitchell just leaving it a little bit long, letting the ball bounce a little bit too much. They almost gave away a try in the first half as well. And yeah, Latrell Mitchell, I mean, still rocks and diamonds. He's going to be still, all the talk is going to be about him. But yeah, he scored his second try just before full time. Dragons handled the conditions better. The Dragons winning 5 from 5 now, I think. So tracking really well and certainly vastly improved from last year. The Rabbits battling away, I don't know. Something's got to give. I mean, certainly they've got a few injuries in there. Well, they've probably got the longest list of injuries at the moment. Storm versus Sharks. Oh, this was battled for one of the best games of the round too. But hell of a good game, this one. Of course, top of the table clash. Must admit, it felt a little bit ripped off without Pappenhausen and Jerome Hughes. And then, of course, Nico Hines pulled out right before the kickoff with a calf injury. I don't know if we know the full details and how long he's out for yet. But anyway, Storm lost. Sharks won 18-25. I had the Sharks 1-12 in my video last week, but because Nico Hines pulled out, I decided to change it to the Storm. I'm just tipping here, not putting money on at the minute, but yeah, certainly that was a mistake. But still a great game, very good defensive effort. Without those players, it was still a really good game. First score of the game was a penalty to the Storm. Nick Meaney, seeing a lot more penalty kicks at the moment. I think that's just probably a sign of how tough the competition is this year. And not long after that, Elisa Katoa scored, and it was a try apiece for the rest of the first half. Tip for tat. Tukuhau Tapua and Remy Smith and Oregon Kafusi scored before halftime after Harry Grant was Sinbin. Oregon Kafusi's try, coming after Harry Grant. Sinbin obviously being one of the most talked about elements of the game. Definitely wasn't a Sinbin offence. He just brushed the leg of the kicker. I can't remember who it was, probably David Atkinson at the time. Yeah, that was, he definitely wasn't making a play for the player. He was going for the ball and he was running directly past. I mean, for me, if that's a yellow card, a sin bin, we're going backwards. 12 all at half time, and yeah, wouldn't expect anything less. Setting up for a great second half. Sharks scored first after half time. Jesse Ramian went over. And by then, when that try was scored, Harry Grant was already back on the field. Tyron Wishart scored with about 10 minutes to go. So there was, between those two tries, 20 minutes of solid defence by both teams. Really struggling to score defence. But yeah, for Wishart, the defence just opened right up. He just, on the angled run, went straight through. 18 all, 10 to go. But yeah, I mean, there was still something else was going to happen. But that was to go to the Sharks. They sealed it with a Talakai try. Sharks deserved to win. I think they dominated most of the game through the forwards. And, all respect to the Sharks halves. they really stepped up. Maybe and when you take a step back, the Harry Grant sin bin was the difference in the end. Certainly there was a try scored while he was off the field, and of course the players are a bit more tired with playing a man down. Munster probably needed to be a bit more involved. It shows how much Jerome Hughes actually does, and Munster just sort of plays on the back of that. And but I think this is a sign that the Sharks definitely deserve to be at the top, at the top of the table, and certainly put everyone else on notice. Waaaahhht was the best for the Storm. He'll get another game this week, I think. Jerome Hughes is missing another week. Anyway, hell of a game. And then the 2 games on Sunday, I don't know, it just kept getting better and better. Not for Warriors or Cowboys fans, but certainly the games were, there was elements of each game that were pretty incredible. Roosters versus Warriors. Roosters winning that one 38-18. I had Roosters 1-12 in the hope that the Warriors might be able to contain the Roosters a little bit, but that was... Anyway, we'll get to that. Chad Waaaahhht was back. Victor Radley, Daniel Tupou, and Spencer Lanui was back. Waaaahht's 300th game, remember, and just before kickoff, Brandon Smith dropped out, calf injury, I believe. So Connor Watson went to starting hooker. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck didn't quite make the field. He was pulled. A withdrawal on Saturday, the day before, and but before kickoff, Marcelo Montoya was a late out, which meant Adam Pompey and Edward Kosi replaced them on that edge of the field. Certainly where most of the early damage was done by the Roosters. Roosters went absolutely ballistic. They scored 22 points in the first 15 minutes. Two tries apiece to Dom Young and Angus Crichton, each running from... basically, the Roosters were just running from anywhere. Dom Young certainly started it deep in his own half at one point, and probably the most outstanding or devastating 15 minutes this year, I would argue. The Warriors were managed to sort of stop it at that point for the half. Well, whether it was them or they were just a bit lucky there, but that was the halftime score, 22-0 to the Roosters. The Roosters started the scoring in the second half through a Daniel Tupou try. Warriors scored their first points in the 50th minute, Ed Kosi going over in the corner. Roosters hit straight back with a try to Tedesco before the Warriors scored a couple more tries to Charles Nickel-Clockstead and Adam Whanua-Blake. Roosters finished the scoring at the end of the game with a try to Sam Walker, who played really well again. And the Warriors, you could argue, if you were trying to find some positives there, they won the second half by 2 points. Maybe something positive they can take out of the game, I don't know. Certainly, if you took a step back, that 15 minutes really was the difference. So that was the game was won and lost there. Sean Johnson injured something, or his pec in the first or shoulder. He was getting his shoulder strapped at halftime, but he injured it in the first half and played on, setting up I think Ed Kosi's try. But he certainly didn't last the game. Couldn't make it all the way through. He did well to stop. The Warriors did well to stop the flood, but. Roosters certainly still playing in form, and they can be very dangerous. They're one win out of the top 4, so hell of a game. Warriors, I still think there's positives they can take out of it, but it's tough going for them at the moment. A big part of what's going on. Waiting to see what's happening with Sean Johnson. That is for real. He's key to them at the moment. Anyway, last game, hell of a game, probably my favourite game of the round. Titans versus Cowboys. Titans winning 20-18. I had Cowboys 1-12. In all fairness, could have gone either way at the end, of course, but we'll get there. Titans, they made a couple of late changes before kickoff. Keanu Kinney went to fullback. AJ Brimson went to 5/8 to partner Kieran Foran in the halves, and that meant that Randall, who was named to play at 5/8, went to hooker, and Sam Verrills went back to the bench. For the Cowboys, Helam Lukey started on the edge in the end, and Finifuaki went to the bench. Thomas Mikaele started in the front row because Jordan McLean was ruled out with a hamstring injury the day before on the Saturday. And it was all the Titans in the first half. And most of the second half for that matter. But both Fifita's scoring for the Titans in that first half. David Fifita with the try assist for the first try to Jojo Fifita, and AJ Brimson scored before half time. They led 20-0. But the second half was where it was just really interesting. And mostly to do with the Titans' injuries. But yeah, Titans lost Philip Sammy in the 26th minute, so that's the first half. Kieran Foran, he went off at the 58th minute with what looks to be a hamstring injury. I think we do know that. AJ Brimson went off at the 69th minute. Harley Smith-Shields went off at the 78th minute, which normally wouldn't matter, but in this case it really did. Cowboys finally scored in the 62nd minute through Nene. And they didn't score again until they scored 2 tries in the last 5 minutes. But there was still another set to play, so there was a minute or two left after that at the second try in that last period there. Titans were just off their feet, and I just completely lost track of who was playing where. But ultimately, both hookers, Sam Verrills and Randall were playing in the halves by that stage, and Aaron Clark had moved into hooker, but the Titans miraculously managed to hold on. Verrills with a try-saving tackle to keep Kyle Felt out in the corner. But yeah, I mean, the Cowboys, if you look back at some of the moments, certainly before 10 minutes to go, I think Valentine Holmes dropped the ball over the line. Good tackle by Jojo Fifita coming across from the opposite wing. But that was a key moment. Valentine Holmes, all he needed to do was just get the ball to the line, but he sort of dove over the line and the ball was knocked out of his hands. That was a key moment. There was other drop balls. There was, I think, a penalty or two that the Cowboys gave away. There was definitely a few moments there that they'll rue, I would say. But certainly Cowboys had a chance to win that game, and of course one of the last plays, they were just held out there. So yeah, it went right down to the wire. Hell of a game. Titans showing some real resolve there, and certainly their halves were played really well. AJ Brimson and Kieran Foran just playing out of their skin. AJ Brimson is they're both very key men. AJ Brimson, whether he's fullback or half, doesn't matter that much, but he shouldn't be centre. Let's put it that way. And then when it's all said and done, believe it or not, there was a 2-point difference. Believe it or not, it could have been that penalty in the 6th minute to the Titans. So that ended up being the difference. But hell of a game, hell of a round. We've got some significant injuries there specifically for New South Wales with Tommy Turbo, Nathan Cleary, of course Nico Hines. We'll wait and see what's happening there. So there's definitely a hell of a lot going on. Injuries all over the place, whether it's New South Origin related or not. But yeah, lots to talk about. Let's quickly cover off the table or the ladder. We've got the Sharks outright top now, where they were level with the Storm. Panthers are second, but the same points as the Storm, who are in third. Dolphins fourth. Roosters, Broncos, Raiders, Seagulls to round out the top 8. It's fair to note that the Roosters, Broncos and Seagulls still have byes to come, and the Raiders are just coming off their bye, so that be interesting to see how they go with all their injuries in their next game. You have then Bulldogs at 9, Knights at 10, Dragons at 11, Cowboys 12, Eels at 13, Warriors 14, Tigers 15, Titans 16, Rabbitohs 17. So Rabbitohs, that's fair, yep. But the Titans, the way they played, and the way they have been playing, if they can get a few more wins, they've only got 2, but that win on the weekend was certainly a huge effort. But they're going to have to see how their injury toll goes for them. Tigers, yeah, they should be down that way. The Warriors, well, they should be too. For the Warriors, they'll be just hanging out for State of Origin, because that is when they get a few more opportunities. They are largely unaffected by State of Origin. Kurt Capewell maybe, if he's back from injury. They've been playing without him anyway. But that's when they might have some advantages over other teams. It doesn't get any easier for them with the Panthers this weekend in Magic Round. Eels, they've got Mitchell Moses coming back, and they played pretty well on the most part the other night, but yeah, obviously Broncos ran away with it a little bit. The Cowboys, very similar to the Warriors, although the Cowboys actually had a chance to win that game. I don't think they're putting full games together at the moment, so that'll be what they need to work on. They played well at the end, the 15 minutes, even although they just still made some fundamental errors, poor decisions, and gave away some average penalties. Dragons tracking pretty well there, and yeah, the Knights, if they can keep playing there, they could make their way into the top 8. And yeah, I don't know. Bulldogs are just one win out of the top 8 as well. Anyway, if you have been listening, thank you so much. I'll make a preview video before the end of the week for the upcoming round and give you my tips. Tips haven't been tracking too badly, but certainly mucked up on the Storm Sharks and Titans Cowboys. But anyway, thanks again. See you soon.